The French Connection is one of the most acclaimed films from the 1970s, lauded for its direction, the performance of Gene Hackman, and impressive nail-biting chase sequences. That reputation was well earned and holds up in 2025, so join us as we discuss The French Connection. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
You still picking your feet in Poughkeepsie?
Yeah, what was I still don't understand that. Anyway, this is a movie podcast, everyone. Welcome to the show. We are in 70s thriller season, and today we are tackling one of the more famous movies from the 70s, and that is The French Connection. So we will start spoiler free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And of course, if you're enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button. It helps us out a bunch. And you can get bonus shows and content over at Patreon and support us, or via YouTube membership. But I'll tell you more about that stuff at the end of the episode. So yes, had you seen French Connection before, David?
No. And in fact, nothing in this movie stood out to me. I don't think I've seen any clips from it, scenes from it. This was all fresh news to me.
There's a couple of famous bits where okay, so this is the one movie in this season that I've seen before. Everything else we're doing, I kind of went out of my way to pick stuff I hadn't seen. But this one I had seen, although it hadn't been since, like, I don't know, it was like the DVD I bought when I was like 16 or something like that.
I was going to say, but behind the scenes here, most of Collector's Cut, I feel like, can be defined by what has Pete not seen in his library. And then, like, every once in a while we'll have to put something in that was like, okay, well, I've already seen that one.
Well, sometimes, like, I'll make a point at picking the big notable things even if I've seen them, but 70s thriller is such a broad category. There'll be a second season of this. There'll probably be a third season of 70s thrillers, so there's room for all the other famous ones that I've seen already.
I was gonna say, by the time we hit season 4, we might actually do a couple that you've seen again.
No. There'll need to be a big one every season at least, so I'll have to put in a Dog Day Afternoon or something in season 2. But gotcha. French Connection was so I said, okay, I'll put in one that I've seen before, and I went with French Connection because it had been maybe the longest and the one that I remembered the least out of the biggies that I had seen. So this is a William Friedkin directed movie. This is what he did before The Exorcist, which came out in 73. This is 1971. Gene Hackman, and there's Roy Scheider again, who we just had in a smaller role in Clute. But it's interesting because when we did 70s disaster seasons, we were noticing some of the same actors popping up. I think it's interesting that we might be seeing the same thing in the thrillers, but not necessarily the same actors, which is interesting in its own right.
Everyone was busy in their own little niche in the 70s, but god damn did they stick to their niche.
Having said that, is this not the same year, 71, as Poseidon Adventure, which was also Gene Hackman? So he was double dipping. He was dipping in both waters, as it were.
I'm wondering if this one had just a really fast turnaround. If this was one that was just really easy to film, because obviously Poseidon Adventure is a bit more involved. And then with Clute also being probably around this time period, Roy Scheider probably just got in and out of one of those movies quickly enough.
Well, I mean, Roy Scheider's screen time in Clute was pretty small, relatively speaking. And I will say, I don't know if I'll say this movie was easy to film. There's a lot of, like, really, like, practical car chases and stuff like that, and stuff that I think was probably quite difficult. But relative to the set in the water of Poseidon Adventure, sure, it was probably a quicker shoot, I would expect. Yeah. But... so we'll get into everything. Like I said, start spoiler free. I mean, plot wise, it's quite simple. There's a potential drug deal happening where someone from France is bringing in heroin, and our hard-boiled cops, Popeye Doyle, or Jimmy Doyle's his actual name, but they call him Popeye Doyle, is Gene Hackman, and his partner is Buddy Russo, played by Roy Scheider, and they're determined to catch this case in the act. And honestly, the plot's pretty much that. It's that simple, and this movie kind of excels more in its chase sequences, its filming style, how it handles the material, and maybe a few other things that we'll get into more in spoilers, but this is the gist of it. So, without further ado, David, what did you think of The French Connection?
I was really impressed. I think this kind of felt like Clute in the beginning, where it felt very slow burn. It felt like there was a bit of an intrigue right as it first started. It catches your eye, but then it takes a really long time to get back into that, get back up to that same level of intrigue and interest and whatever else. But what was really helping this one along was, you kind of said it yourself, the cinematography. And I'm also going to say this is one of the few movies where I really noticed the sound design. I think they did a great job with the score, and not just that, but like knowing when to not have the score, knowing when to leave it to just the sounds of New York. And I think it really did work in the movie's favor. Acting wise, it's very well done. I don't think I have a bad word to say about it. It feels very, I don't want to say entirely down to earth, because there are some more like crazy out there moments, but it feels all very plausible. It feels very much of like, no, this could just be a straight adaptation of a real life case, and they didn't really add that much to it. They added, a couple flares here and there for dramatic effect, but for the most part, it feels like this could be something that did get pretty wholesale adapted over. So all in all, I think it's very well done action sequences. I think it does a great job of allowing the audience to follow along on what basically is just normal cop stuff, but keeping it interesting and keeping it intriguing the whole way through. And I don't know how deep it is into spoilers and whatnot, but the car/train scene is absolutely one of the best I've seen done in terms of just keeping the flow of action going and never letting up for a moment.
Yeah, I think I'd sum up some of what you just said there is that it's very gritty. It's very, you talk about like, keeping up with the cop stuff. And I think this movie, and I think this was a very common thing in the 70s actually, is that we're not going to explain everything to the audience. We're going to just sort of expect the audience to keep up, and it's okay if they don't understand every little detail of what's happening. And there's a lot of that early on where there's like, mumbling, some things to each other in like a club, and you can barely make out exactly what they're saying or why they're looking at someone or considering investigating something. But you just sort of go along with it, and like you're looking for the clues, you're looking for the signs, and there's a strong character element to this film as well, which we'll talk more about in spoilers, but it definitely kind of plants some seeds, and the ending certainly pays off on that front more so than all the other things. But yeah, the standouts, whenever there's like a top 10, top 20 chase sequence list that's brought up, the sequence at the end of Act 2 is pretty much always on those lists. It's a very diverse chase, but it's not the only chase either. I think there's like several chases in this movie, and some of them are, they're slow and they're surveillance, and it's more about being coy and that kind of chase. And then there's ones that are foot chases in the city that lead to trains, that lead to cars, that lead to all these things, and everything feels very kinetic and very kind of like, it wouldn't surprise me if the entire movie was built around the idea of the big set piece chase sequence where it's like, okay, this is where the idea started, and they expanded it out from there to fill a movie around it to make it was okay, because I really want to do this sequence, and Friedkin directs the hell out of it, and it is like the sequence, and it's not like the stuff after it's not good. It's perfectly solid. The ending in particular, I think it's got a nice stark kind of cut to black, but the peak of the movie is that chase sequence, no doubt. So no, that's the stuff that sticks out. Yeah, the first half is a little bit slower, especially when it's cutting between New York and France, and you getting just kind of like some setup. It's perfectly fine, and it works well enough. And at least in the New York side, it's interesting enough. I would say the France side, other than the opening sequence, which has got a little bit of suspense in it, the France side's a little bit more just the, like, oh, we're going to New York, here's some subtitles because we're speaking in French, and there's not really that much interesting going on that side of it. So that's maybe where I ding it a little bit. And the plot is, from a plot perspective, relatively simple. I do think there's some interesting character bits that come out of it by the end, but ultimately it's like, no, simple plot, potential drug deal happening, cops trying to just do surveillance and follow people, and that's kind of it. But it's how it captures those following people and chasing people that I think makes it arguably a classic, if you're wanting to use that word.
Yeah, no, I agree with pretty much all that. I think also what sets this apart from what I also think, because you described that it's Popeye Doyle and his partner. Whenever it's described in that sort of way, it kind of comes implicitly of this concept of a buddy cop, this concept of you got two partners and they you know, maybe they're clashing heads, but maybe they've been partners forever, whatever else. But like, this movie does a great job of setting up that these two have a history, giving a little bit more to Popeye in terms of like past character developments and how he was, because Gene Hackman's obviously the lead more so than the other one, but it doesn't make it the focus. The focus is still absolutely solving the crime, and the fact that these two are just long-term partners that have been doing this stuff forever, like, that's kind of just background noise. That's kind of just character fluff. It's not a buddy cop movie in the way that you would think of any other buddy cop movie.
I wouldn't say it's a buddy cop movie at all. I don't think it even remotely fits into that. There's a cop and he's got a partner, but that's not what this movie is. A buddy cop movie is about their partnership. This movie is not that. It just isn't. Right. You know? So,
but like, it's the sort of thing where if you bring it up and, you know, if we say that Popeye is the lead, and he is, it's kind of implicitly saying that, okay, so the partner just kind of falls off to the wayside, isn't really there. But no, he's constantly there. He is constantly helping the plot along and is always by the side and doing stuff. So it's this weird thing where it doesn't feel like this is your hard-boiled detective story either, where we're just focused on the one guy and everyone else is kind of tangential. It's this weird little blending in between.
I mean, Roy Scheider's a supporting character, and his relationship to Jimmy Doyle is there to facilitate the character arc of Jimmy Doyle, and that's right. You know, that's why ultimately I could. I mean, part of it is also because buddy cop tends to be a bit more lighthearted than this as well. To be fair,
true.
But I think I would never call it a buddy cop story because he is there in service of the main character story, which is Popeye Doyle. And a buddy cop movie tends to be more equal, tends to be more of a twofer where there's give and take between and maybe a few more laughs along the way. But I think there's some iconic shots in this movie, some that I'd even forgotten about, but they kind of stuck out where, you know, when they came up, I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of an iconic like moment you see, like whenever this is in like a book of the best movies ever, it's always this photo, it's always this moment they show to show it. So no, that's a very strongly made movie. It's you know, I like William Friedkin's a very talented director, who tends to make very kind of hard hitting films. You know, he went on to do Exorcist after this. He did a film called Sorcerer, also with Roy Scheider later in the decade, which is actually the same. It's adapted from the same book as The Wages of Fear, which we did on Criterion Cut. So he did like a William Friedkin take on that story. So yeah, I think the style of the movie and the way it's shot is absolutely the biggest asset. But then you've got Gene Hackman just anchoring it in the center, and I think it's got some really smart like design choices as well. Now obviously it's very gritty and it's very down to earth and how it represents most stuff. But one of the things, and that even down to like how it's shot in terms of like the camera stock, it's very grainy, and that was clearly a choice. Yeah. Right. I don't think they had to go with super grainy film, but they wanted to do it because it makes it feel more gray. But the other thing that gets to me, and this really ties into some of the chasing stuff, is the main bad guy, Frog One, as we'll call him. Like just a simple decision to give him like kind of a recognizable beard and always walking with an umbrella just means that when we're chasing him through a crowd, there's these little, you know, like little flourishes where you just see an umbrella tapping on the ground, and all of a sudden your ears are just drawn to it, and you know, and it even works for the main character as well. It's like, oh no, he just caught the sound of the umbrella, or he just saw the flash of the handle, or whatever it is, and it's really good visual language where you're always kind of like looking for the same signs as the main character, just little motifs, little like you know, outfit or you know, facial hair or whatever it is, like the costume and makeup to just make him stick out, and just that, you know, not a way that it feels like a cartoon character where he's over, you know, eccentric, but just enough where no, he sticks out from typical New Yorker walking around.
Yeah, well, I mean, that goes, you said cartoon character. That's the one thing in cartooning that you're always supposed to do with character design is give a distinct silhouette Give something that even if you can't see the rest of the character, you get this one thing, and it allows you to tell what character that is. And I think, yes, it goes for the Frog One character, but also Doyle constantly is wearing these like thin brimmed hats, like the
flat tops. It'll be flat,
like the pork pie hats, and it's absolutely a character trait. It's absolutely something that in a crowd, you look around, you can always pick him out despite everything else because he is that visually distinct from just because of that one tiny little choice.
Yeah, another character on the villain side that they're investigating is called Sal, and he's kind of the lead-in to like what they investigate through the rest of the movie. I got excited to see him because this is Tony Lo Bianco, who you probably haven't heard that name, but he is the main character in God Told Me To, which is a wonderfully weird sci-fi movie that you'll have to do for homework on the Ace at some point. But I was excited to see him. I was like, oh, it's him. Oh, I got really, I was clapping. I was like, yeah, I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait till you watch God Told Me To. The reactions will be delightful. It's one of those movies where it just, like, every 10 minutes it takes a sharp left turn, but the movie commits 110% every time it turns, and it's wild.
I'm looking at the poster for it right now, and I still don't know what's going on.
Don't die. Don't go in cold. Don't look anything up. Don't read the plot synopsis. Don't do nothing.
All right. Fair enough.
So yeah, I was delighted to see him. And obviously the rest of the supporting cast are solid, but that's kind of I guess the only other one that's worth kind of really mentioning is kind of Frog 2, who's like the main henchman to Frog 1. Now, obviously, these characters do have names. I'm looking at them, but honestly, Frog 1 and 2 is very easy to remember.
Yeah. Literally the top 5 people credited on Wikipedia all have like their real names and then quotes for a nickname. And it's so much easier to just remember the nicknames, except, strangely enough, Detective Russo. He's credited, his nickname is Cloudy. I'm pretty sure I always just heard Russo.
Yeah, I think I was just thinking Scheider every time he popped up. Whereas but Jimmy, I was, Popeye was what I was thinking every time, he was around. Yeah. So,
so not really characters worth mentioning, but two people I did want to mention is they have a supervisor, the boss, who you can't be going out there. It's too big of a thing. We can't send you out there. And he's like holding them back from doing their job until he finally relents. And then there are 2 FBI agents that are coming along because they need help from the Fed for the sake of getting some spending money on all this. The supervisor and one of the agents are apparently the actual police people that were in the real French Connection case that this is all based off of.
Interesting.
Yep.
I mean, the guy in charge, he has a decent number of lines, because I'm assuming of the 2 feds, the one that has more lines and has like a beef with Popeye is just an actor. I assume he's not the one who was actually in the real case.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, because just because he's got more to do, I wouldn't expect them to give him that much lines. But the guy in charge who's like, giving them the go ahead, he gets a decent number of lines in his scenes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, apparently he also, turned into an actor. Like, he did do more filmography, but this was his first thing that kicked him down that road.
Well, maybe he found a new... He's like, I'm into this. Yeah. I like this.
All I had to do was bring down a drug kingpin, and then there you go. Done.
Yeah. I'm not sure how, accurate any of it is to, like, the real... case.
I couldn't find a quick summary that said how different it is. There are some things that are definitely the exact same, just because Wikipedia directly says so, but it didn't really give a breakdown of like, was there a car train chase scene like that?
Yeah, I don't know. I would
probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would even it's loosely based on something that happened, but I never really once, as I was watching this, thought to myself, oh, this is a true story. Like, I never thought of the movie that way as I was watching it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. As far as anything else goes, before we get into spoilers, it's a good movie. It's hard-hitting. It is grimy. It's gritty. There's not a lot of violence, but when there is a little bit of violence, it's kind of shot in a way to make it feel a little visceral, even though the blood's kind of fake. Like, just the quick cut to like a blast to the face does feel like, oh shit, you just got shot to hell.
Yeah, it's literally before like anything else happens. There's a man who gets shot, and because of the way they did the blood, the guy, like, you see the gun at first, and then he pulls the trigger, and then the guy's face just gets splattered with red. I'm like, well, that's not a good way to use a paintball gun, because that was absolutely not blood.
But it still looked violent, though. It still felt visceral because of the way it was edited and the quickness of it. It had effect. And I think anytime anyone gets shot in this movie, it does feel like it feels hard hitting, regardless of the blood being a little bit off. But I mean, that was pretty common for the 70s. You know, I love the original Dawn of the Dead, but if you go back and watch that, the blood is just, it looks like paint the entire time. So yeah, I mean, then we'll get into spoilers, because I don't know how much more spoiler-free stuff there is to say.
Yeah.
So
no, I think if we're just narrowing down specifically, you said Gene Hackman was kind of anchoring this movie the whole time, and I don't feel like I have a lot of Gene Hackman under my belt. Obviously, Poseidon Adventure pretty much kicked off the show. It was very early on in our time period there.
Season 3.
And then I feel like the only other thing I really have is Superman. I'm sure there's a few other things in there, but for the most part, I don't have a lot of Gene Hackman. But the more I see of him, the more I get it, the more I understand that, like, this man is just a great actor pretty much anytime he steps up.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are two movies you said you've seen. They're much more Hollywood, right? And he's having fun as Lex, and Poseidon Adventure, he tries to bring a bit of nuance to that, but ultimately it's a disaster movie. This is like your hard-hitting, he is acting in this movie. This is him playing a proper character. And there's definitely more examples of that we'll, you know, maybe run into in other seasons, or maybe we'll even do a Gene Hackman season at some point and just go through a bunch of the things that we haven't done from him yet. Always possible, but yeah, very, very good. It only just passed away at the age of 90-something last year under weird circumstances, but yeah. So, yeah. He lived a long life at least, though, because he got to 90-something. So, all right, we'll say spoilers then for the French Connection. You have been warned. We'll get into the movie. The opening of the film is in France, and I had this weird moment, because again, it's been a long time since I've seen it, so I don't really remember much about it other than the big chase scene and a couple of distinct visuals. And it started in France, and I'm like, oh, we're in France. I thought this movie was set in New York. And then I stopped and paused and thought about it. Oh, it's called The French Connection. Of course we're doing stuff in France.
It's one of those things where as the movie progresses, I'm like, okay, what exactly is the French Connection? And then very quickly, as the movie starts up, it's like, hello, we are Frenchmen, and we are the connection of this drug buying thing from one country to another. It's like, oh, all right, well, that was very quickly explained. It
wasn't very complex. I mean, the opening of the movie is pretty good, because it's like, you know, some guy's watching other people, he's surveying them, you know, he's standing eating, and then he kind of follows them. But then he's going back to his place, and this kind of it's very methodical. You see him walking around, and it takes its time. But it almost like a little twist, because it feels like he's the one spying on people. It feels like he's the one who's the danger. Maybe he's a local policeman. We don't really find out who he was. We never get much context for it. But maybe he's a local policeman spying on the bad guys. But Frog number 2, the sort of the villainous henchman, he's waiting for him in kind of his like sort of landing area of his apartment building, and he's got a gun, shoots him, he dies. And as he's walking away, I like this detail, he bends over and rips off a bit of the baguette that the victim was carrying, just so he can eat a bit of a baguette as because we're French, we love baguettes, you see.
I challenge anyone to go to a French market and not walk away with a baguette, because apparently it's impossible.
I feel like it's, see, whenever you watch like a movie in the US, and they have to show that someone's been out grocery shopping, they always have the brown bag. Yeah. There's always a baguette sticking out of the brown bag. There's always a baguette and a bit of lettuce sticking out.
Right, exactly. The very top of the lettuce, and then maybe if they're trying to show that it's really full, you'll see like a couple of tomatoes right at the top.
Or an orange. I feel like I've seen an orange sticking out at the top. Yeah. But yeah. Always a baguette. A regular loaf of bread just doesn't look good on camera, apparently.
I mean, it doesn't, but you need something that's long and rigid, and I'm gonna just let that one sit.
Do that hand motion again as you're talking about long and rigid?
Yeah, I know. Hi, YouTube Shorts. How's it going?
Rigid for her pleasure. Anyway. So yeah, obviously we go to New York, and I think it's specifically Brooklyn. I want to say we cut to, and they're kind of undercover. Popeye's in a Santa outfit, and Russo is like being like a food vendor in the street. And again, they don't really explain too much here. I mean, you assume that maybe they're undercover, just waiting to see someone go into this bar that ultimately Russo goes into, like, you know, try and bust someone, and then we get a bit of a chase. But ultimately, what they're doing here isn't that important as far as plot is concerned. This is more about an introduction to the characters, how they operate, how, you know, rough they are, particularly Popeye. You know, when they catch this guy after a bit of a chase, we get a foot chase throughout the streets to get to like a sort of, just like a, I don't even know what you would call this, but every city has these where there's just like a random patch of land with really bad grass on it, where like it's not been kept well.
Oh yeah,
you know, just one of those. Like every city's got a couple of patches like that.
I'm pretty sure that's always defined as the other side of the tracks.
Right. Okay. But yeah, they kick him when he's down, and they do a bit of the good cop bad cop, where basically Popeye's trying to scare the shit out of him into, and part of his scare tactics is saying do you what pick feet in Poughkeepsie? Yeah, do you want to go to Poughkeepsie? Like, what is this weird threat? It's like a vaguely sexual threat or something, and I don't understand what it is, but he's saying it.
I have to assume it's slang. Like, based off of, you know, they're not explaining anything, and based off of everything else we're seeing, that like we get that they're narcotics officers, we get that they're all this. I have to assume it's slang for pushing drugs or something like that, but I don't get it. I don't understand the relation there.
Because later on, when they're leaving their supervisor, and he kind of jokingly says, "Hey, the Popeye, you still, you know, picking feet in Poughkeepsie," and he kind of smiles. It made it really sound like, no, this is like Popeye's thing. Like Popeye came up with this weird, almost just to freak out the perps.
Yeah, so that's good guess, because I did just Google it, and it says it's a nonsensical phrase used to disorient and confuse suspects during interrogations. So it's basically just him coming up and screaming like, "I just watched 9 seasons of my favorite TV show." It's like, what? What are we talking about? What are you doing this?
Dear. So yeah, they're trying to scare the guy into giving up, you know, whatever intel he's got. But again, none of this is important for the plot. This is all about character introduction. This is all about just seeing how these two operate, how they chase people, and setting up kind of their thing. And when we see them next, and we'll stick with these characters. Honestly, we'll go back to the French people when they enter the plot properly.
It's all collectively one big thing.
Yeah. But you know, we see them leaving for the day, and Popeye's like, "Hey, let's go get one drink." And Russo doesn't really want to. He's kind of tired. He's like, "Nah, I want to just go home." Like, "No, let's go get one drink." So they go to this you know, club, whatever it is, get a drink. And
Copacabana.
You know, it goes a long time here where you don't hear any dialogue, where you sort of see that Popeye's going up and talking to a lady that he clearly knows. He's mingling a little bit. But he keeps looking over at this table, and this is where the Sal Boca character is for the first time. We see him. You know, he's got a cigar, he's got a lady on his arm, he's talking, he's happy, he's buying drinks for people. It seems like he's a big shot, and it's like, oh, he looks maybe like a mob boss or something. That's kind of the vibe. But clearly Popeye's looking at him, and eventually he's sitting at the bar with Russo, and he's like, "Hey, Russo, look over there. Like, I know who that guy is. Do you know who that guy is? I think I know who that guy is." And he starts talking, and honestly, I don't know if he actually says concretely in this scene why he specifically wants to start like looking at this guy now. I don't know if he has like a specific thing, or if it is just like a gut feeling that, oh, he's acting like a big shot. He must be up to something around now.
So what I gathered, and I there's a scene later on where they start like putting together pieces and stuff like that, and start walking through the different characters that we're going to be following. I don't know if I put it together here or there, but from what I gathered in this scene, they were watching this guy. He's rubbing hands. He's talking to everybody. But then eventually this one guy comes up. I think his name is Weinstock. This one guy comes up, and he is a big player. He is somebody that they know is a thing. So they're like, this guy must be making moves, even if we don't recognize him, because Weinstock is involved with them and is getting in deep. So I think that's the reason why. But no, a lot of this movie does come back to the characterization of Gene Hackman has a lot of hunches, and he just goes off those hunches, and he always follows his gut.
Yeah, so they end up going outside and just waiting in the car for Sal to come out. And Roy Scheider's just wanting to go to sleep, and he's like, oh god, and Popeye's like, oh come on, let's just tail him for fun. Let's just tail him. See where he goes. Let's see what happens. So we get this like extended sequence of like them following him in his car with his missus, and there's a lot of that. He goes to a couple of different locations, and we're not even clear what he's doing. I think he drops a briefcase off at one location, but then when they eventually stops, and they've switched cars by this point, he stopped in front of a small store, which is actually called like Sal and Angie's store. And the woman he's with, like, turns out she was wearing a wig. She's actually a brunette, and it's his young wife. Because he takes in like piles of newspapers, with a string around them, and it's like, and obviously you're thinking it's a cop movie about narcotics. Like, there's something stashed in those newspapers. This is all a trick. But then when they like drive back round to see where they've went, they see that he's just inside, like, unhooking the newspapers because this is his store. He works here. He sells newspapers amongst other things. And they're like,
that's such a recurring motif in this movie is them following somebody around thinking like, yes, we did it. We tracked them down. We got to the location. And then it's revealed like, oh, these aren't the guys, or this isn't any sort of crime being committed here. And they're just like, crap, damn it, every time.
There's not a lot of comedy in this movie, but Roy Scheider's look at Popeye after he's made him stay up all night because it's morning now to follow this guy around, and it seems like there's nothing going on, is legitimately a funny moment. It's a good moment. And of course, immediately we get kind of like they're talking to their boss or whoever it is, and we get like the rundown. Oh no, he's got a history. He's got priors. He's done armed robbery. He's done this. The young wife was a shoplifter, and like they get into all these details, and like we're convinced they're up to something. They're doing something. They've been meeting this mob boss. Blah blah blah. Let us do this. Let us survey them. We got a wiretap both his shop and his house, so on and so on. And this is when the feds kind of get put into the picture. And what's interesting here is Malderig, who's like the main Fed, who clearly doesn't like Popeye. There's a great line where like he's like put on this, and he goes up to like the supervisor, who's like, "Really, Popeye?" And I think the supervisor, the line I think was something along the lines of, he's kind of a good cop. He has good hunches sometimes. Like he kind of sells it in this weird way, and you don't necessarily know why Malderig doesn't like him that much. There's more hints that kind of come later on when there was a confrontation.
They do mention it early on here where he's going to his supervisor and he's like, I just got a hunch. I got this hunch. I need to do it. And they specifically say, last time you had a hunch, we ended up with a dead cop. And it's not elaborated on. They don't explain what happened. We don't get a flashback sequence of like, here's that last case where everything went wrong. Like, it's just left up to the audience to say, yeah, whatever he did resulted in a cop being dead, and we don't get anything more than that.
Yeah, we never hear anything else. And it's not even elaborated on per se later. We just get a bit more of the passion about how other people feel about it later on, I guess is how I'd describe it. But so they survey, they watch, we get a little bit of their lives in between as well, where they want more intel, so they go to this bar and like basically make everyone line up, and like apparently there's just drugs all over this place, and it's all just the front so he can talk to his informant, because he gets rough with this one guy, but then he takes him into the bathroom, and immediately they just sort of calm down and go, hey, have you heard anything about what's going on? He's like, yeah, there's a big shipment coming in because the streets are quite dry right now, and blah 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 blah. And I
really like that scene. It's a solid. You say there's not a lot of comedy there, but I really like
that scene's quite funny.
They get into the bathroom and they immediately both know the score, and they just start shooting the shit. They just start talking, and then finally, when all the information comes out, like, yeah, there's a shipment. We've been hearing some stuff coming in. He's just like, all right, where do you want it? And then punches him in the face and drags him out of the room. And like, yeah, we continue the charade because we can't let our informant know that let anyone know that he's our informant.
In fact, that might have even been before they went to the supervisor. I mean, the order's not super important, but like these details all, they kind of add up. We get a little bit more as well, where Roy Scheider goes to Gene Hackman's apartment at one point, and Popeye shouts, hey, let yourself in, I can't answer the door. And he's like, wait, why, are you okay? He's like, just let yourself in. So Roy Scheider gets out his credit card or whatever and breaks into his thing. He comes in, and we find Gene Hackman with his foot handcuffed to the bed. The implication being that he met a lady last night, he's had a one-night stand, and she locked him up with his own handcuffs. And I was like, okay, that makes sense why he couldn't answer the door. But for a second I thought, wait, did she take his keys with her and lock it from the outside? And then of course all that didn't matter, because then she comes stumbling out of the shower and like Roy Scheider gives her a little wave and says, "Hey there." And I'm like, oh, so he just didn't want to shout on her to go and answer the door. That's all this was.
I cannot imagine living in 70s New York and having any sort of home where a credit card is able to just get into my home. I don't care whether or not I'm a licensed police officer to have a gun or not. Like, I'm not going to live my life like that. The other thing I like is just before that sequence, it's implying that he's going to get with the girl. I think this is textbook, can be shown in film classes to be a perfect example of the Kuleshov effect. For anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's the idea that you can ascribe meaning to somebody's reaction by cutting away to a shot and then cutting back.
Yeah.
Because we show him in his car, he's just driving and he has a very blank look on his face. But then they cut to him pulling up next to a woman who's on her bike, and then a shot of just her ass on the bicycle seat, and then back to a shot of his face. Again, totally blank, but it tells you everything you need to know, and that is absolute textbook Kuleshov.
Yeah, there's that famous Hitchcock clip where he's describing this basically, and he's like, "Hey, look, here's a shot of me smiling, and it cuts to like a little girl playing in the park. It cuts back to me still smiling, and it's like, oh hey, he's delighted because this young girl's happy. It's a sweet wholesome moment." But now you swap out the shot of the young girl playing for a woman in a bikini with her ass like sticking out. And all of a sudden, I look like a creepy old man. How easy it is to just make it look bad. So, anyway, so all this stuff is set up character-wise, is giving us these hints. And the funny thing is that even once it gets into the French people are actually in the city, and we'll get into all the specific interactions with them and the chase stuff. But there's multiple points where it kind of feels like, hey, you've accomplished nothing. You've screwed this up. You keep following these people, and nothing's came of it. And it kind of culminates at this car accident site, where the Fed who doesn't like him, Mulderig, actually yells out because Hackman's like, "Hey, no, I know they're dirty. We can still do this. We need to still get these guys." And this is where Mulderig just kind of yells out, "Yeah," and end up with another dead cop. And that's when he tries to fly punches, acting offended that he's had this said to him. But it kind of really shows the tension of okay, he got a cop killed, not intentionally, I assume, but certainly people are holding it against him, and they consider him maybe reckless. And I think certainly by that point in the movie, I think it's fair to us to say that we've seen enough of him at that point to know that he is obsessive when it comes to his job. Now, I also think you could even argue that he's not a hero. He's not some noble character who's necessarily doing this because he believes in right versus wrong. It kind of feels more like this is just what he does, what he's good at, and he's obsessed with. I don't even know if he was obsessed with doing a good job. I think that he got into this job and he maybe just developed a taste for the hunt. To put it into really simplistic terms.
Yeah, I would put it. It's not the same type of character, but that same level of obsession. There was that TV show House MD.
Yes, sure.
Following Dr. Greg House. The entire thing about his character is he's just smart. He's horrible at being a doctor because of bedside manner and stuff like that. But the whole reason he does it is because of this need, this drive to solve the puzzle, to get to the bottom of what is causing the illness and doing that sort of thing. I get the same kind of vibe here, and not that I think he's a genius or anything like that, but he has this drive and motivation, and regardless of whether or not he's even doing cop work, whether or not he's technically on the case anymore, he is absolutely dedicated to getting to the bottom of these things and getting his perp.
That just goes back to that scene where he's like, "Hey, Russo, let's tail this guy just for fun." He's off the clock. Russo wants to go home and just do whatever with his night, and here he is no, let's tail this guy. Let's see if we've got a case brewing here. Let's do it. He's that dedicated. And I don't know if there's enough evidence to suggest this, but I did notice just a couple things. So between his apartment, which we were just talking about when Roy Scheider comes over, and it's kind of a mess. It's relatively small, and part of it's his fault for not keeping it tidy, of course, but you see his apartment, and there's a great scene when he's surveying Frog 1, right? It's not too long after Frog 1 and 2 have just gotten to the city. And there's a sequence where they've tailed him to a restaurant, and he's just standing across the street watching them in the restaurant.
Yeah.
And inside the restaurant, Frog 1 and 2 are getting, an extravagant dinner. They're getting trolleys of fancy desserts wheeled out to them. It's very decadent. They're getting beef cut up in front of them. They're having like at least a 3-course expensive dining experience. And across the street in the cold, where he's got his coat on and his hat, and he's like struggling to, Roy Scheider comes up and just hands him like a paper bag, and there's a slice of crappy pizza inside. So he's standing there eating a slice of crappy pizza, sipping what it seems to be terrible coffee because he's pouring it out like immediately. And I'm not saying that this is like a surface level like driving motivation, but I do almost wonder if part of the like I'm going to take down these scumbags is like they get to live like rich people. For all the wrong reasons, and I have to, I'm out here in the cold with my crappy slice of pizza, and yeah, I think you could just read it as his dedication, like he's willing to do this to get these people. But I also was thinking as I was watching the movie, and just seeing enough of his crappy little apartment, this scene with the food comparisons and all that if part of it's like, oh, I'm taking down these guys that don't deserve what they have, like they're living like kings. I wonder if like that's part of it.
I would rephrase it slightly.
Sure.
In that there's an earlier bit where he's talking to the supervisor, and the supervisor basically saying like, you guys in narcotics, you make a record number of busts per department because you bring in these low-level nobodies constantly. You bring in like a guy who's got a couple of joints or whatever, which makes me think it's less about the idea of, he's only going after these high profiles or like that's all he cares about, because it seems like, it is this obsession of just trying to get the perp. He just wants to get these people off the street. But I think what I would rephrase it slightly as, especially with this case, is I think he does kind of want to make a name for himself. And that also extends over to the other idea of they hate the feds being a part of this. And there's kind of this contention where they feel like the feds are going to try to wrestle this case away from them. And they want to keep this as internal as possible. It feels like they want to do this because this is their case. They want, maybe not the glory is the right word, but they want to be able to do this and say it was them who did it.
I mean, do you think there's like a little bit of like a mirroring with the villains, where the villains, want more wealth, more power, more success, and then you've got Popeye who, like you say, wants to make a name for himself and is trying to get the bigger fish, partly because he's been challenged because he was told, yeah, you've got a number of busts because they're all just these low-level criminals. Like, part of that might even be the motivation. But it was that food scene in particular that just really stuck out to me, is like really comparing and contrasting how they're both living right in this moment.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't read that as just a motivational thing. I didn't see it as he was coming after them because he's angry or whatever. I just took that as a moment to show how different these two sides are living, like to show the fact that these people, like he is following rich, powerful, famous people, and he is a nobody. He does not have the ability to go into that restaurant and even pretend to sit around.
That's why I said it's not like a surface level motivation. Like I don't think it's like what he thinks his goal is, but I'm just wondering if there's a little bit of resentment baked in to.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, obviously, once, because all the stuff in France is basically just, hey, we're going to New York. Here's a little bit of setup where he's talking to his daughter. Here's a little bit of setup with her. Again, it's not even like super important details really for the rest of the movie. There's a scene where like, hey, we've got this kind of like semi-celebrity who's going to like help us get to New York, and it's not even, I think, really that important for the rest of the movie. If anything, the most important thing of the scene is that Frog 2 kind of is a little bit uneasy about it because he didn't trust this guy, and it's maybe there mostly to establish how close Frog 1 and 2 are, and how they are kind of like, he's very loyal to Frog 1, he's very much looking out for him and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's also, during that initial killing scene, we did see Frog 2's face.
Yes.
We did see that he is a murderer. So in the initial scene where we get Frog 1, there's nothing to inherently say he is a criminal. It's only once they have their meetup that it's like, oh, okay, he's a bad guy.
Yeah, true. I think I just assumed he's the villain because we're in France and it's called the French Connection. But no, you're right. That is the scene that establishes that he is like part of that particular villain side. But because Frog 2 is the one we saw murder someone at the start of the movie, he's the one that feels more dangerous, like at least in a physical sense. So
yeah, it feels like this guy's the brain / the real controller of everything, and he's just the hitman.
Yeah. So And you know that's exemplified because one of the things they get to quite quickly is they're following these guys around, and they interact with Frog One for the first time because they're following Sal, and literally one of them just bumps in to Frog One, and it's like kind of like, wait a minute, and then they see him shaking hands with Sal outside, and like, wait a minute, this is someone important. And from there they follow him to a hotel and all the rest of it, but they establish very quickly that Frog One is very, very aware that he is being followed, and like Popeye is aware that he's been like, you know, he's been shaken, like he's shook the tail. They say that early on, and it leads to a much bigger like chase sequence where it's a game of cat and mouse where he's trying to get rid of him, and it leads to some of the more iconic little moments in the movie where we you know, there's the whole game of cat and mouse where it's like, oh, getting onto the train but getting off at the last second, and there's that one shot at the very end of that entire sequence where Frog gets on the train, so Gene Hackman gets on the train, he steps off the train again, so Gene Hackman gets off the train, and when Gene Hackman looks over towards where the camera is, you just see Frog One slyly step back on, and then the door's shut, and he gives him that little wave at the end of the scene to be like, hey, I knew you were following me the whole time, and we were pretending that you weren't. Like, we were standing at the same drink stand, acting as if we're strangers, acting as if we both don't know what's happening here, but, you know, we're going through the whole charade of, like, you know, walking through the street, him, because there's a whole bit even before they get to the train station where, like, he kind of loses him in the street and he's looking around, and this is where I was getting to earlier with, like, you know, the signature hat and the beard and the umbrella, you know, all that stuff. So really good, really well extended, thought out sequence. It pales compared to the train and car stuff that comes later, but it's very good in its own right.
Well, it's very different than that, because we kind of glossed over it, but it does exist. Of when they're following around Sal, there's this feeling to it of no one person's able to hang on him for too long, because if he sees the same person following him, then he's going to know he's being tailed, and then he might not go to wherever the meeting is. So it's this constant trading off. The feds come in, and then we switch between all these other characters until finally they get to the hotel. Like you said, we follow around Frogs 1 and 2, we get a split up there. It isn't until probably next day where Frog 1 apparently escapes from the hotel without being noticed. He manages to slip whatever people were supposed to keep an eye on.
Popeye just happens to see it, like see him come out of the building. Because when they get to the train station, he phones like the Fed who was supposed to be surveying him at the hotel. He's like, hey, he's left the building, you asshole. How did you not notice this?
And that's what I really like, is because we've already established that we're supposed to be trading off these tails. We're not supposed to have one person following for too much. You really get this mental feeling of how Hackman is trying to keep his distance and not be seen, but also stay close enough and like know what's going on. But on top of that, as it becomes obvious that Frog One knows that he's being tailed, how much he's willing to close that gap. How much he's willing to just get like right up on the guy, because it's better to be noticed and still be around him than to lose him for good. Yeah,
and this is why, you know, like the chase sequences don't feel repetitive, because they're all very different. And this one, you know, the other one's so like exciting and action packed relative, whereas this one is more the cat and mouse. It's like a game of wits, and it really sells this idea. I mean, they set it up earlier by saying that he already lost the tail before, but this is the movie showing us explicitly that this guy, Frog One, is smart, and he knows how to try and get away from someone.
Yeah, I like the first time that he steps off the train, Hackman barely has like any time to respond. So he just grabs a woman who was there and like pretends to chastise her and says like, oh, no, you can see him in the background. And then as Frog One walks over to a food stand, he's like, all right, get out of here. Yeah. And all I can imagine is what went through that girl's mind of like, I was just pulled off of my train by some random guy who started chastising me and then tossed me aside.
I like, you don't hear what he says to her, of course. So I love the idea that he's making it look like that, but what he's actually saying is, I'm a policeman and I'm pretending to chastise you so that this perp does not notice that I'm following him. So just play along for a minute as if you know me, and then I'll be leaving you. Okay, that's him going by, and just walking away.
And that's the other thing, is we get to later on chases in this, how much of these sequences are playing up a part, playing up like, yeah, I belong here, there's a reason I'm here doing whatever, until they get out of earshot / eyeshot, and then sprinting after them, just immediately trying to catch up.
Yeah, the one really near the end that strikes me is when Sal goes into like a parking area, And Roy Scheider goes in and bumps into him, and then just has to pretend, oh yeah, I can't find my parking ticket. Where's the guy? So, oh, he's just coming out. And as soon as Sal leaves, Roy is pretending to talk to the guy about his parking. And as soon as he's out of earshot, he just starts chasing after to get to the other car and be like, hey, he's in the brown car. He's in the brown car. Go, 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 go. You know?
I love how the parking attendant's trying to keep up the conversation. He's like, okay, well, if you don't have your ticket, could you tell me? He's like, never mind, bye.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So obviously, Popeye has been heavily noticed by Frog 1 during this whole chase sequence that he finally was able to shake him on. And they're everyone's very nervous about doing the deal because they're all aware that they're being constantly followed and yada yada. So Frog 2, like after they have like a meeting in Washington with Sal, they literally go to a different state to have a meeting to try and like shake their tails.
Yep.
Frog 2 is like, hey, or Frog 1 says first, that guy that was following me though, he's a problem. Like he can tell he's obsessed. Like again, this is a sign of a smart villain. Like he knows that Popeye is the type of guy that he is. Like this guy is determined and he's not going to just go, even if he's taken off the case, which he literally is around this part of the movie. And Frog 2 is like, I'll take care of him. He's like, well, there'll be more. That'll draw attention. He's like, yeah, but we're leaving on Friday, so kill him on Thursday, leaving Friday, and no one's the wiser.
Yeah, whatever. Who cares?
And it leads to the set piece of the movie, which is like, it has to be like from the moment he takes a sniper shot, which I consider the start of the whole thing, to the end of the chase scene where Frog 2 is shot and killed. That has to be a good 10 minutes.
It's almost exactly 10 minutes.
Really? Yeah, it feels it. And not in a bad way. Like it feels like there's a lot in there because you get this like crazy tense sniper moment where a woman pushing a baby happens to just walk in front of Gene Hackman and gets killed instead. And he has to dive behind a tree and like get close to the wall so the sniper can't get to him. And he gets up to the roof, but then he sees him and he does a foot chase. And like
I do want to call out, he is up like 5 stories in the air. He looks down and sees the guy already bolting, and then somehow gets back down to the ground enough to continue the chase. Yeah,
but he chases him, and he gets to the what do you call it? The
subway.
Well, it's not subway because it's up. It's up.
Oh, elevator train.
Yes, the elevator train. Right. He gets up to the stairs, but he's on the wrong side of the tracks. The bad guy's on the other side, and he can see him. Right. At first he doesn't, because he sort of looks. You get like a POV shot, like looking down all the people on the other side of the train. There's an old woman there. There's an old woman there. There's a middle-aged man, and the camera keeps going, but then it snaps back. It's the middle-aged man. It's him. It's that bastard. It must be him. But the train comes on that side. The bad guy gets on it. And it's like, oh shit. So we get this insane sequence where Gene Hackman, he does yell over so the policeman on the train has a reason to like think, oh, I should go and investigate this man. So that's going to play out in the train. But Gene Hackman,
stop him. He's wanted by the police, and the other cop's like, what? And then he looks over at that guy who now looks extra nervous, and he's like, dude, all right, guess I need to stop this guy.
Extra sus, as the kids would say. But Gene Hackman runs down, commandeers a vehicle very quickly, and we get this sequence where he is driving like a madman underneath the train tracks to try and keep up with it and get to the next stop before the train stops so he can get this guy.
I love, just without even getting to the chase yet, I love the like tiny little touches, and I feel like this movie does the best part of it, where he commandeers the vehicle and you just hear the other guy saying like, when do I get my car back? Like, what's going on? And then he does like a full peel out. You just hear the guy go like, ah, Christ. And then the other thing is, before he commandeers it, he goes up to like the information desk to ask where's the next stop for this train. And he gets stopped by the turnstile. And you like, it feels so real in that moment. It feels so real where he's like, ah, son of a, and he has to like jump over it and then ask the information. But it's just those tiny little touches that give it a little bit of extra flair.
Yeah, I think the thing here is there's a lot of really signature things about this chase that really make it work as he's like driving through traffic and almost getting hit. And it ramps up after he gets out the car and back into it again. But there's a lot of like the camera strapped to like the front of the car but low down, so you get this like low POV shot, and some of it's quite effective when he's going like past intersections and like there's a the cars. There's one point there's a woman with a baby and he almost hits her and he has to swerve,
of course, and
it feels like it feels like super chaotic, and it feels like he's really struggling to keep up. And there's one wide shot that it cuts to at one point that I really love, and again I think it's after he stopped and get back in the car. But there's a wide shot where you can see his car in the bottom of the frame, but in the top of the frame you can see the train. You can see them both together in the
yeah.
same shot. It's a beautiful, like, oh, this just perfectly encapsulates what's happening in this entire sequence.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what makes the sequence work so well, is not only does it keep this tension up of he's trying to get to the next station, and obviously the train is, as we'll get to, kind of a runaway at this point, but it, even without knowing anything else about the city layout, anything like that, it gives you a perfect sense of geography where you always know where he is in relation to this train.
Oh yeah, it's perfect.
And like how he's managing to keep up.
Because it's just following the track. You don't have to, like, the geography is perfect. You don't have to understand the geography of the streets of the city. You just have to understand he's got this one line to follow and he's trying to stay close to it. And sometimes he gets pushed away, so he has to go along the street next to it and then he tries to get back in. But you always understand the anchor that he's trying to get back to. So, and I always say that one of the most important things about action in any movie, regardless of how big or small it is, if it's just like a scene, like when I say action, I don't necessarily mean there's like something big going on. Even if it's something as simple as there's two people in a room and one's trying to escape, like run past the other, you have to understand the geography of where the exit is, where the two people are in relation to the exit, and that's what makes it exciting. Same principle, just bigger here, where you always understand where he's trying to get back to and the obstacles that get in the way. And then, like you said, on the train, it becomes kind of a runaway train because the villain, realizing that he's been followed, shoots the cop, gets to the driver, and like holds him at gunpoint and says, "Don't stop at that stop." And that's why the train keeps going, and it's why Hackman has to get back in the car, and the chase, keeps going for a good chunk of time, and we get all the big set piece moments where he almost hits people, he almost hits cars. It's just really good. All the great shots happen, and then ultimately, when the train is stopped via the emergency brake or whatever, the bad guy gets out. Hackman gets out his car. He looks up. He can see him moving above, so you get that great shot looking up, and it leads to the iconic moment that's actually on the poster of all things, where Hackman gets to the bottom of the stairs. The bad guy's at the top of the stairs, and he's like, freeze, but he's kind of hurt by this point, Hackman, so he kind of lurches over, but he's still
crashed the car like 4 times, and there are no airbags at this point.
But he's lurched over, but he's still pointing the gun, and the Frog 2 decides to try and make a run for it, but he turns around, and Hackman just shoots him. So you get this almost, it reminds me a little bit, this came later, but it's a little bit like the platoon shot of just seeing the arms go out as he gets shot in the back. But that's on one of the posters of the movie. It's like this iconic moment of just of finally getting them, and it's this punctuation at the end of this solid 10-minute chase, which has had a 10 sniper sequence. It's had a foot chase. It's had car versus train chase, and all of it feels like it's like they had a great idea for a chase sequence, and they built so much around it that it's just a solid 10-minute suspense masterclass. So, and
then just like you say, it's the punctuation mark. I would say yes. It's like it gets up. That's the climax. He's shot, and then just to give the audience the same level of like exhale, like everyone just calm down for a second. You have him collapsing like on the stairs. Hackman's character just collapses down, and then Frog 2 just tumbles the whole way down until he's on the same level of Hackman, and it's like literally a visual representation of the falling action. The like, okay, and we're done.
And also, just to go back to this idea of him going after bigger fish, the idea that he's falling down to his level as well, like, oh, I got you, you're down here with me now, kind of thing. I mean, the entire idea that he was underneath the L train and he had to like stay while he's up there, and he's able, it seems like he's in control of the situation for the most part, but then it gets flipped very quickly. And it's only because of Popeye's determination that he finally, and relentless refusal to give up, that he eventually gets him, and he does get him. It's almost like an entire visual metaphor for the entire movie in a lot of ways when you think about it. So good stuff.
And why we need to fund public transit in America, god damn it.
And then after that, they're following Sal some more, and Hackman's convinced this car that he was in, that he's left somewhere, is dirty. It's got the goods in it.
This is the one bit. So they follow him out. This is where we get the garage scene you were mentioning before, and he's convinced that this car is dirty, that there's something wrong with it. And it's dropped off, I think someone says, down by the waterfront. And then it's not touched for like an entire night. It's just left there. until we get a little sequence where a couple people come up and they do a whole police raid to catch these guys, and they think that they're the criminals, but it turns out they were just going to steal the tires off the car. Like, they aren't actually connected to this at all. But my only thought, once it's revealed that this car is actually dirty, is why the hell did he leave it parked down there?
I mean, I assume it's for, like, you know, like, because this is meant to be this is the car that's got, I mean, it does turn out to have all the drugs in it, right? Like, that's kind of the thing. I assume, like, the plan was that, you know, the other side would pick it up, you know, the next day, and this was all meant to be, like, the quiet way of doing this, without being...
Just hidden off to the side.
Yeah. Because one of the things that I really liked is, like, so a couple of French people go to, like, retrieve the car, and the idea is that the official report is this car was stolen, so the police have it now, and they come to get it. So these two French guys get the car, but when they bring it back and they see Frog 1's basically begging this other French guy, hey, I need you, like, I keep being followed, I need you to take this car for the deal and, you know, give it to the Americans and, like, get paid for the drugs. And the guy's like, no, I'm not doing it. Like, and he just shoots him down. So Frog 1's, like, left to do it himself, so he has to take the risk of doing the drop off and the exchange. But I really like this idea at this point in the movie. He was desperate to have someone else do it because he knew that there was a big target on his back, because Popeye, like, not only was Popeye following him, Popeye's taking out his main henchman at this point, so he's got every reason to think, I am vulnerable here, but I want my money. So I like that. But anyway, not to gloss over the actual car, like, search, because that's like a big sequence here, where again Popeye looks like he's effed up because they can't find anything. They've got a mechanic who rips the car apart, looking in every nook and cranny, and it feels like it's over. Although just as they're, like, ready to give up, Roy Scheider, like, does give them, like, a glimmer of hope, where he's like, you know, I'm reading the manual here and the car's meant to weigh this, but it weighs, you know, 120 pounds heavier, and it was that when it left Marseille. Like, Popeye has to be right. There's a discrepancy here.
I love how they tear everything off of this car, and then the mechanic's like, he hears this weight differential thing, and he's like, look, the only thing I haven't taken off this car is this very specific piece. And immediately Hackman's like, damn it, let's take off that thing then. Why did we leave on that one piece then?
And sure enough, you know, it's full of heroin, and they're like, damn it, we got them. But getting at the climax of the movie, you don't know exactly what the plan is, but, you know, the little surprise is that these two Frenchmen are given back the car, and it's pristine. Like, clearly they've put it back together, they've made it all nice.
I don't know if this is implicit in the movie. I don't know if they say this anywhere here, but I did read just during a plot synopsis, like, description thing, that it was, like, they did not restore the car.
Oh,
they just got an exact lookalike and just loaded it up where it should have been.
Either way, as far as they're concerned, they got the car back, and obviously they have, and we find out the police have put all the heroin in that same hiding spot. So I presume because if they let the deal go through, then it's, we've caught them because they've exchanged the money and the drugs, so now we can arrest them all, kind of thing.
If they didn't put it back in, you would have a lot of dead people at that exchange.
Yeah, I was wondering what would happen if they opened this and there was nothing there. All the mobsters would probably start firing. But
there's a character that's not really that fleshed out, but he's apparently like a chemist of some sort.
He
tests the drugs purity. Yeah, and I was thinking that the cops didn't replace it with actual heroin, not expecting them to have a chemist on hand. And then he, like, does that, and he's like, it's not good, this isn't right, and then a whole big thing happens from there. But no, they do replace it with the actual stuff.
Yeah, I was almost wondering, like, what innocent thing could they put in that would give a really weird result to this test? Wait, it's not meant to start burning green? That's a strange result.
And I was waiting for the scene where, like, he dabs his finger to it and just tastes it and just like, baking soda.
That's weird. It tastes like... I'm trying to think of something funny. Arsenic. Drops dead.
Is that almonds? Oh, no, wait, that's cyanide.
I love the twist is like, wait, that's not heroin. That's cocaine. How did it turn into cocaine? What's happened to you?
Wait a minute, that's not heroin. It's cocaine. We're even more rich.
Is that more valuable? I don't know.
I have no idea. I have not participated in that scene.
Anyway, so they have the deal. They think it's all good, and Sal and Frog One are driving away, but in this little, like, abandoned building they went to make this deal. They're driving. They had to go across a bridge to get there. They're driving across the bridge, and then the other famous shot I always remember is Popeye with all the cop cars behind him, waiting in his hat, and he gives them a little wave, like just like he did on the train, to be like, "I got you, you son of a bitch." So they skid back in the car and like say, "The police are here. They're coming. They've blocked the bridge." So all the cops come in. There's a bit of a shootout. Sal gets shot. Roy Scheider shoots him with a shotgun. But the important part of the ending, though, is that Frog 1 has disappeared into the building and Hackman runs in to go after him. And notably, so is the Fed, Muldrig, is run in as well.
But in like a separate way.
Yeah.
Not the same.
So, he's looking around. It's very tense. It's a really grimy location. It's not just like it's a band. It's a little bit run down, derelict. So there's bits of concrete that are exposed and all the rest of it. So it's really good visuals and all that. Roy Scheider goes in as well afterwards. And, he comes up behind Hackman and Hackman spins around and points the gun at him. He's like, whoa, it's me. He's like, okay, right, calm down. He's tense. And they're looking together, trying to find Frogman. He's like, he's here, I know it. And they're looking for him. And then they see, someone move and Hackman yells whatever and shoots the gun multiple times. Yes. And like they go and check him. And it's Muldrig, it's the Fed. And Scheider kneels down and checks his pulse and looks like in shock. And I think what's notable here, like obviously, he's made a big mistake here by shooting him. But to me, the big thing here is not that he made the mistake, even though that was clearly set up that like things have happened on his like watch before. The big thing, the big takeaway for me is the reaction to what he's just done, where he doesn't even pause for a second of guilt or a second of shock. He just starts loading his gun and says, he's here, I know it, I'm going to get that bastard. Like, he cares more about getting Frog 1 and does not give a shit that he has just killed someone else that he was working with.
Yeah, I feel like you could see it on his partner's face where he's like, are you recognizing the amount of blowback that we're going to get on this? Yeah, this isn't just a cop. This is a federal agent.
You've just killed someone. Like, what? And I think that's what's so important about Roy Scheider's character. As much as he's not the main character, when I said at the start of this that his character is so important for Hackman's character, it's this. It's the fact that in the middle of the movie, when someone, I think it's just before they're leaving, just before the scene that Muldrig has with the supervisor character, where he makes a comment about Popeye, and Russo steps in and says, hey, if you're going to come in with that attitude, stay at home, give him a break. He sort of sticks up for his partner. Like he's loyal to him, despite the fact that Popeye takes him out at 4 a.m. and he's like miserable all the time because he's so dedicated. Like he sticks up for his partner. But here at the end, that look in his face as he looks up at Popeye not caring what he's just done, it feels to me that he's kind of like, oh no, you're kind of what he said you were. Like, you're not quite the person that I was sticking up for before. He's a little horrified by it. And the movie ends, I mean, obviously it has the text afterwards, but the movie cuts to black on Popeye running into the rest of the building, and we just hear like, him shout and then a gunshot. And like it just cuts to black after the gunshot. And it's like, I almost wish there was no text after. I wish it just ended on that moment.
I'm torn because I like the text after, but because I only like the text after because it describes a very specific ending where we go through each of the criminals and it's like, this guy got a suspended sentence. This guy was never even caught. Like we find out Frog 1 like was not caught at all. He just was basically let go to free. It
goes through some of the low level people, right? And it's like, hey, misdemeanor, let off with warning. But I mean, that's not what it says, but it's basically just let off with a warning. Yeah. Basically,
except for the actor who was the only one who served major celebrity time.
And it gets to Frog 1 and it says he was never caught. And I kind of like, I wish I didn't know that. Like, I get like it works for the themes of the movie that that he didn't get him right after all that. He did not get the main bad guy, but like. It ending on the text that says, hey, Doyle and Russo were taken off narcotics and reassigned, and just, fade to black, go to credits. Like, I kind of left it was left ambiguous as to like the outcome for Popeye and even Frog 1 to an extent. I love the idea of we don't know, did he shoot him at the end or is he shooting at someone he shouldn't be again? Like, or
was he shot?
Or was he shot? Yeah.
Shot there?
For sure, yeah.
And I agree. I like that ending more. I like the ambiguousness of it. Putting in the text changes it to there's like this corruption, like the fact that they were rich, the fact that they had all these connections and stuff like that, where he was able to not get caught. He was able to go to France and just never was punished or anything like that. That's saying a very specific thing about the system as a whole. And then the fact that the partners got split up, they were taken out of narcotics. It's kind of a no good deed goes unpunished sort of thing. I like that conceptually as an ending, but I like the ambiguous ending more.
Yeah.
I like the idea that it is just who knows what happened.
No, I completely agree. Like, I don't dislike what it says necessarily, but I think it would be better without it. Because the ending is ultimately him running away from having killed this innocent person and not caring, and just his obsession taking over. Cut to black. It's not the end of the movie is not him getting or not getting the bad guy. It's the fact that he's willing to run off and leave Roy Scheider there with the dead body. That's what the ending is. Gunshot, obsession, cut to black, perfect. So I do kind of wish the text afterwards with the still frames wasn't there. I wish it was just ending there, but I
mean, it doubly so because apparently there's the existence of French Connection 2, which not directed by Friedkin, but does star Hackman and the French guy.
I have never heard anything good about French Connection 2. It may not be terrible, but I have never heard anyone say like you have to see it or anything like that. It's got a much lower rating than IMDb. It's probably fine and not terrible, but is that what you want? Is that really what you want? Like you want the sequel where Popeye is like hunting like France, like going through France looking for Frog One, being like, I'm going to get that son of a bitch. It's the equivalent of, I mean, assuming that we went with the ambiguous ending, it's the equivalent of like, okay, Inception 2. We specifically find out whether or not he was in the dream. Yeah. So I do like. I have no interest in seeing the second one because I think this movie is clearly a very standalone movie. It was never intended to have a sequel. But yeah, so like, well, I will say because it is based off of a real thing, this is the part that like actually did happen. So all of the text that comes up is actually what happened. The TV star celebrity stand-in or whatever, he did actually take the fall, and Frog One's real life counterpart went to France and essentially just, they don't extradite their own citizens, so he was able to stay in Europe and never got punished at all for it. I appreciate it, but I just don't care that it's based on a true story. Like, I think the movie's more exciting without it. I just, like, and I know some people will disagree with that and say it's based on a true story. It should have the accuracy, and I'll give a shit. I will say the one difference, and it's a difference by omission, is that the two real cops did not get split up for another, like, 5 years. And they did like 2 more major busts in between then. So it wasn't like French Connection happened and then they were like, oh, we're reassigning you because you mess with the wrong people. It's like, no, it just happened because they moved on to other departments. Yeah, I mean, the director of the second one is John Frankenheimer, who did make some, respectable movies that have good reputations. So it's not like they got some, hack, but, ultimately... and again, I'm not like, I don't know how bad French Connection 2 is. It may not even be that bad, but I think it just feels like a unnecessary, like, very unnecessary, sequel that just, is being kind of forced out for, because it was really the first one made some money, got some buzz, decent, all that. I mean, I'll go ahead and say that it feels like, and I can't even remember the name of it now. We did a bonus episode for Poseidon Adventure that was. Oh, another Gene Hackman sequel. Yes. Yeah. It feels like that, where it's like, this movie did well, and so we're going to cash in at something far inferior. Not that Gene Hackman was in that sequel, to be fair. He didn't come back. No. Michael Caine stepped in for that. But, that's interesting. Yeah. David, what are you rating The French Connection? It's really good. I really, like... I kind of went into this not expecting a lot because I'm like, yeah, I've heard it's a good movie, but like it's just, an action cop procedural. How good could it really be? But no, I really did enjoy myself and I was surprised by how much I did. So I think that I'm probably going to end up with this one. I think it gets the 9.
I think it does manage to strike up to that level for me. It's rare that I give that to something that I don't already have some sort of a connection to, but I get why this one is one of the top movies for a lot of people. I do get the love for it. So 9.
Yeah, honestly, I'm debating the score a little in my head. I think I'm going to settle on 8.5. And the reason why, despite all the positive things we've said, despite the high ratings to the categories, which you can find out in the ratings rundown over on Patreon or via YouTube membership, but despite all that, I feel like if I just like was more emotionally attached to the character or the story a little bit, it would just be that little extra thing to get it into like absolute all-timer amazing territory. But it is a phenomenal piece of filmmaking. It's very tense and riveting at numerous points throughout. Fantastic sequences. Good final, great moment to end on, although a little ding for the after cut to black text and images. But 8.5, it's a extremely great movie. And I would highly recommend it for numerous reasons. Obviously, one thing to mention, we didn't really bring up in the review, but yeah, there's a couple of like racial slurs, like just to kind of maybe further accentuate that Popeye's not like the most amazing character, or person, I should say. It's just like once or twice, and it's a couple of different ones. And I'm bringing it up specifically because there was a little bit of controversy like a couple of years ago when I think Disney Plus like censored them with like dubbing or something like that. So it's worth mentioning and just putting it out there. But part of it's like a time thing and like just certain things been said more in movies, but part of it I do think is also trying to paint a very particular character that they're going for here. So yeah, absolutely. I don't think you could do a grizzled cop character in New York in the 70s without uttering a few racial slurs. It feels that way, yeah. So just wanted to mention that. But yeah, does it make the cut? I think it's clear that it does make the cut, just based on the positivity.
I agree. The only question is when we hit this kind of 8.59 level, there is where we start to debate it getting into a cut above. Personally, I'm not pushing for it. And considering I gave a higher rating, I think... I'd imagine you're probably in the same boat as me.
I think it's an upper level makes the cut, to put it in terms. I think it's close to a cut above. I think it's definitely, it's more of a personal thing where it's just not quite making that complete all-timer kind of category, but
right.
It's excellent and people should see it for various reasons, especially if you love filmmaking just as an art form. Like there's a lot of good things in here to really appreciate. So yeah, that's the French Connection. Next week on the Collector's Cut, we'll be looking at The Long Goodbye. So I think it's interesting. We went from kind of a stalkery, like, thriller from the first movie. This was more of a cop thing. I think The Long Goodbye is still crime, but it's leaning more towards the criminal side of the crime, I think. I've not seen it, so I'm not sure 100%, but I think that's it's just how wide and varied the like thrillers are in general, I suppose. But
without looking too deep into the synopsis, I see private eye and murder. So
really? I thought it was a mob boss thing. Oh, fair enough. Never mind. I clearly don't know what's in the movie. That's fine with me.
Right.
Yeah, it's not the last time we've seen Gene Hackman this season, though. There's another Gene Hackman movie coming in a few weeks' time, so look forward to that.
All right.
But we get a bunch of things coming up on 70s Thriller season. But yeah, Long Goodbye is next week. And of course, I mentioned earlier on, you can support the show, help keep it coming by going to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV or becoming a YouTube member and getting access to Extra Reels, which is a monthly bonus show we do where we do some of the worst movies ever made. It's torture, it's misery. There's a free episode actually going out this month for a movie called Get Even. That went out a couple of weeks ago, so make sure you have a look at that if you want to get a taste of the type of movie that we watch for that show. And if you enjoy your misery, you can get that. But you can also get Ratings Rundown, where we do all the extra ratings categories for the movies. We made that kind of a little bonus thing because not everyone was into it. But if you're a sicko and like all those extra ratings and like hearing us say what the best sexual tension of the movie was, you can find that on that bonus segment. But there's bonuses for the other movie shows and stuff and whatnot. So there's a voting tier as well if you want to do a little bit extra. But that is the show. That has been the Collector's Cut. So thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, we have the other movie show that me and David do, the Atomic Cinema Experiment. It's a science fiction show. Next week, we're doing Universal Soldier 3 on that, which I'm not excited about, but...
Yeah, great.
Great stuff, I guess. So thanks for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching movies. And if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.